A few days back, I was watching one of the daily brief videos by Zerodha. It was talking about the fitness tracking industry, things like monitoring your weight, sleep, heart rate, and other such metrics. And while watching that, I couldn't help but notice how similar that idea is to how we use indicators in trading. Think about it. When you track things like your weight or your sleep, you are not doing it because the numbers can predict your future. You're doing it because they help you understand what is happening to you and what you've been doing. So if your weight has been steadily increasing, that's information. If your sleep quality has been deteriorating over time, that's again information. These are signals that something is changing, and that awareness allows you to respond. Now, in isolation, each of these data points may not mean much. But when you observe them over time, when you start to see patterns, they begin to give you some context. And that's where the real value lies. To me, indicators in trading serve a very similar purpose. They are not tools that tell you exactly what will happen next. They are tools that help you make sense of what has already happened and what is currently happening. And that's exactly why we focus on so many key indicators in our weekly market metrics video as well. And once you have that context, you can start thinking in terms of probabilities rather than trying to predict things. There's also another layer to this, especially if you look at it from a research perspective. The very act of measuring itself often leads to insights. When you work with data, build your own indicators, and actually study what they are capturing, you begin to notice patterns you may have otherwise missed. And often, that process of observation is where the real edge starts to build. In this episode, we'll look at how to bring your ideas to life by coding custom indicators on TradingView using Claude. Because this is often the first step to observing and collecting data in a structured way. I'm your host Sandeep Rao, and with that, let's get started. Before we get into the specifics of what to code, how to code, and why, here's a story that has stayed with me for a while. A few years back, I was at one of my favorite bookstores in Bangalore, Blossom Book House. I came across this book called Serendipity: Accidental Discoveries in Science. And there was one story that really stood out for me. It was about Wilhelm Röntgen, a German physicist at the University of Würzburg. The year is around late 1800s, and at that time he was studying cathode rays, essentially how electricity behaves in vacuum. Nothing unusual. In fact, at that time, many scientists were working on similar experiments. Now, to make sure no external light interfered with his observations, he covered his experimental setup with cardboard and darkened the room completely. One day, while running the experiment, he noticed something strange. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a faint green glow on a screen several feet away. That didn't make sense to him. Cathode rays are weak and they don't travel that far, especially through air. And with the setup covered, no light should have escaped. But the glow was there. Many would have ignored it, but Röntgen didn't. He started tinkering. He placed books in between, then blocks of wood, then sheets of metal, but the glow persisted. Finally, while holding a piece of lead, he noticed something even strange. Instead of a shadow, he could see the outline of his own hand, and within it, faint images of his bones. That moment is what led to the discovery of X-rays. And to me, the real takeaway from this story is that insights don't always come from knowing what to look for. It comes from observing data, tinkering with it, and when we see something unexpected, choosing to dig deeper is what makes the difference. Reminds me of this Bezos quote where he talks about why wandering is so important. While it sounds inefficient, you have to explore to get to the end. He uses a beautiful analogy of the mountaintop and the trail. Do watch the video. I will link it in the show notes. Now, with that as the meta, let's move forward. You see, there are two things that we'll focus on in this episode and next. First, if you have an idea for an indicator or a strategy, how do you actually bring it to life using Claude? The goal here is simple: translate your idea into something testable so that you can start observing patterns and correlations in the data or the chart. Second, once you have that output, how do you analyze it using Claude? Now, this step is just as important because it helps you understand what the data is really telling you, how effective your idea is, where it works and where it doesn't. And importantly, these two steps are not independent. What you learn from the analysis feeds back into the original idea. You refine the indicator, tweak parameters, or even rethink the approach entirely. So while it may start as a linear process, over time it becomes a loop. Build, observe, analyze, refine, and repeat. Let's start with step 1. And before I get started, as always, the disclaimer. The ideas and examples shared in this episode are strictly for educational and illustrative purposes only. Nothing discussed here should be construed as a recommendation, investment advice, or a solicitation to trade. Trading in derivatives involves significant risk and can result in complete loss of capital. The examples and data presented are meant to explain market behavior, not to suggest that similar outcomes will occur in the future. Outside of the risk disclaimers, note that I would be using third-party tools like TradingView Premium and Claude AI's Pro Plan to demonstrate coding of custom indicators that we would be referring to in this video. Before we get started with coding for TradingView, it's important to understand that there are two broad things you can build. First is an indicator. An indicator is essentially a set of rules that produces visual outputs on the charts, lines, signals, zones, and so on. It helps you observe and interpret the market, but that's where its role ends. You cannot directly use an indicator to trigger trades or generate back-tested trade logs within TradingView. The second is a strategy. A strategy is similar in structure to an indicator but goes a step further. In addition to visuals, it includes clearly defined entry and exit conditions. Because of this, you can run backtests, generate trade logs, and evaluate performance directly within TradingView. You can also connect these signals to an execution platform and automate or semi-automate trades. So in this series, we will look at both, starting with indicators and then moving to strategies. On a quick technical note before we get started, Pine language's latest version is version 6, but most of the existing indicators you'll come across are still written in version 5, probably 80 to 90% of them. There are technical differences between the two, but for our purpose, the key thing to remember is this. When we are working with Claude, we need to be explicit and ensure that our code is written in version 6. That way, everything we build is aligned with the latest version from the start. When it comes to indicators, there are broadly two types of them. First, there are pure indicators. They process data and present it in a specific form, helping you observe and interpret the market, but without directly translating into tradable rules. Then there are indicators whose logic is structured enough to evolve into a strategy where you can eventually define clear entry and exit conditions. Let's start with coding an indicator, a pure indicator that would not lend itself to a strategy. Let's say you are an intraday trader and you want a live range tracker during the day. So when I say range, I mean high minus low range. In addition to the current day's range, you also want to see it expressed as a percentage of the last 5 days average. And ideally, you want all of this presented in a simple table format. Help me code this indicator for TradingView in PineScript version 6. It's essentially a session high minus low indicator, and it should update for each bar if the range changes. And when I say range, I mean session high minus low. That's the first function. The second is it should also show me the range, the current day range or the current sessions range as a percentage of 5-day average range. And the value 5 can be an input in the indicator. And all of this should be shown as a small table on the screen. And yeah, that's pretty much. Any other questions you can ask me before you start coding? Regular session exchange hours, I would say bottom right, equity index. So we got the code. Okay, so we copy it here and we paste it here. Okay, done. So as you can see, we've got a small view over here, and the session range was 307.95, which is 156% of the 5-day average. Something seems fishy. Okay, so let's see, this is the 5-day range. Okay, and I don't think it is, let's say, nothing should change here. So it's the number 307.95 is correct. That's the sessions range, but percentage of 5-day average is not getting calculated correctly, as you can see. So the real one is 76.6%. Seems correct to me, but I think when I move to 1 hour, it's not calculating correctly. So let's go back to Claude and tell Claude to fix this problem. The code works fine, but here are a few things which need to change, and there is a calculation issue as well. The first thing, the calculation. So when I put the chart on 1 hour time frame and I look at the today's range as a percentage of 5-day average, I'm getting an incorrect value because I think the 5-day range is not getting calculated correctly. So the 5-day range should be previous 5 sessions ranges, the average of that, and then a percentage of that. So that calculation I think is not correct. So check that. Second is I also need to know the 5-day average value somewhere on the table. So the 5-day average value and today's session range as a percentage of the 5-day average range. Give me the full updated script. So Claude is now fixing the indicator with those errors, and hopefully it's fixed. And we go back and we read this again and try and save it. Okay, so now we've got all the 3 things here. We've got a session range, which is today's range at 307.95, and 5-day average at 401.81, and percentage of 5-day average is 76.6%. So that's as simple as that. Now, this is a simple information indicator, and it just tells you what's happening at any given point of time, and it's a very simple one. You can make it as complex as possible. You can create such indicators for not just for spot values, but for any instrument which can be plotted on TradingView, including options. What we just saw was how to create a simple information only indicator which doesn't lend itself to a strategy. Next, let's move to another hypothesis, which we could code as an indicator first and then later convert it to a strategy. Now, many of you may already be familiar with the Heikin-Ashi candles. They are useful because they smooth out regular candles and make trends easier to visualize. At a basic level, the logic is pretty straightforward. The current Heikin-Ashi open is derived from the average of the previous bar's open and close, while the current Heikin-Ashi's close is the average of the current bar's OHLC values. If that close is above the open, the bar is green, and if that is below the open, the bar is red. Now, if you think about it, this is already a smoothing mechanism, but only a limited one because the current bar's open depends only on the previous bar's values. Now, here's a hypothesis that comes to my mind. What if we smooth it further? Instead of using just the previous bar's value to derive the current open, what if we pass those values through a smoothing function, say an EMA or an SMA, and then use that smooth value as an input? That would give us what is commonly referred to as smooth Heikin-Ashi bar. To build something like this, we need a couple of starting inputs: a look-back period, a smoothing method such as an SMA or an EMA. Can you help me code a smoothen Heikin-Ashi candlestick indicator in for TradingView in PineScript version 6? It should have two inputs. One is a look-back and two is a smoothing factor, and for smoothing we need EMA or SMA as two choices. If you have any questions, ask me before you get started. So we have some questions from Claude. The first one is, what should the look back control? Is it the period for calculating the Heikin-Ashi values themselves, example averaging n bars and before applying HA math, or is it a pre-smoothing of the raw OHLC input going into the HA calculation? Then what does the smoothing factor apply to? Is it a post-smoothing pass on the HA candle's output, smoothing the resulting HA, or the same as above and you want one parameter to do both? Output preference, should this plot as actual candles using plot candle or as a signal or overlay of some kind? Let's answer that. One, I would want it to calculate Heikin-Ashi values themselves, that is averaging over n bars before applying the HA math. That's what I would want it to do. Then output preference, I would not want it to overlay on the main chart. I would use it on a separate pane. So that's how I would use it right now. It's again asking me the question 2, whether the output should be smoothened or not. Yeah, there's only one smoothing step before the input goes into the HA formula. So we got the code here and we go back here and we paste it to the chart, save and add. Lovely. So there you go, we've got the indicator. Okay, this looks quite clean and it's all trending, as you can see. So you've got clear trends on the upside. We are on an hourly time frame, which is anyways a trending time frame, and then you can see the chart. Okay, compared to the main candlestick chart, this looks quite clean, and that's exactly the purpose of a Heikin-Ashi or a smooth Heikin-Ashi chart. And that's enough for us to begin. Now, as you can see, an indicator primarily helps with visualization. It shows you patterns and structures on the chart, but it doesn't allow you to create alerts in a systematic way, nor does it let you backtest entries and exits using TradingView's backtesting engine. Now, that's where a strategy comes in. So far, what we've done is built an indicator and explored it visually. to understand how it behaves and whether the idea really makes sense. So far, what we've done is we've built two types of indicators. One is an information only indicator, and the other one is an indicator which lends itself to a strategy. And once we are fairly sure about the idea, we can take the next step of converting it into a strategy. And that essentially means defining clear entry and exit rules based on the indicator. Now let me take you back to Claude and ask Claude to convert this indicator into a strategy.
So what we got here is a smooth Heikin-Ashi indicator. As you can see, the trends are showing up clearly. However, there is no way for us to test whether taking trades based on this particular trend indicator makes any sense. And that's the reason. And to figure that out, what we would do is we would convert this strategy into test whether taking entries and exits based on this indicator makes any sense. What we could do is we could convert this indicator into a strategy. And let's figure out how to do that. So we go back to Claude and we ask Claude, can you convert this indicator into a strategy where, give me input options for long only, short only, and both the trades? And please explain what you understood before you start coding. So here is what Claude has explained. So long entry and then we have a long exit. These are what I'm not changing. The SHA look back parameters perfect. This is a good question. So where it is asking when the for the both mode, when the long is open and a bearish flip happens, should it reverse, close long and open? Yes. So at any point in time we should only have one trade going. So, and this is with reference to the both mode. So when we talk mode, it should either be long or short. We cannot have like two trades, one long and one short going on. This is a summary of what it's building. Long only, entry only on bullish flip, close on bearish flip, no shorts, the short only, and then this is long and short. So we got the code. So now we would go back to Pine, okay, and move this here. And in Pine, I'm going to create a new strategy. If you see here, I am not doing the indicator, I'm creating a strategy here, okay. So the existing code goes out, and here it is, save, and I would say ITM and save, add to the chart. Okay, see, we got a trade log immediately on. So I'm going to switch off the indicator because we don't need it anymore. All right, so I'll probably just remove it. Okay, so we've got the same thing, but there's a strategy this time. As you can see, it's there in its name, and we've also got the trade logs. Okay, so you will have a strategy report activated. So we've got the strategy report, and this is the maximum duration, I think so, since 2014 all the way till 2026. You have all the trade, it's the trade logs, you have all the metrics here, such as smooth and nice equity curves. Okay, so all of that. Let's check the strategy settings once. Okay, look back period is 14. I would want it to be 40, let's say, and this and then we could do something. We could do one instead of equity, just say quantity here. Okay, that makes it easy. Using on bar close. Okay, fine. So now, as you can see, we have got these markers also on the screen, long and short. So we got the strategy in place.
And yes, it's that simple to convert an indicator into a strategy using Claude. In summary, in this episode, we focused on how to use Claude to take a simple trading idea and build, test, and iterate on it. We also saw how to convert that idea into an indicator using Claude and then apply it on TradingView to visualize and see how it behaves. From there, we took the next step, converting the indicator into a strategy. That's where we define clear entry and exit rules and use TradingView's backtesting engine to evaluate performance. One quick note, while we didn't run into any errors here, you might, especially as the complexity of the code increases. If that happens, the process is simple. Just copy the error message along with the line number, paste it back into Claude and ask it to fix it. You may at max need to do this once or twice, but in most cases, Claude gets it right within 1 or 2 iterations. In my experience, even after building hundreds of indicators, this process has been fairly smooth. In the next episode, we'll go one step further. We'll take the trade log data generated from TradingView and analyze it using Claude, slicing and interpreting the data to refine and improve the strategy, and if needed, make changes to the strategy script as well. Beyond that, we'll also cover how to use the raw OHLC data from TradingView and run the entire backtest on Claude itself. I hope you found this episode useful. Subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on the next episode. Till then, take care and trade safe. I'll be back soon with the next one.